Hey everyone, and welcome back to Token Talk. Now, today I wanted to talk about Solana because Solana's done something that basically no other blue chip has been able to do so far this cycle, and that has been keep up with Bitcoin. And so, I think this is actually really, really noteworthy, and I want to talk a little bit about it further, just because I think this is something that we should have our eyes on, because usually when something like Solana is not considered to be, of the same tier or quality of something like Bitcoin, but it's the only thing in the market that consistently keep up with the performance returns of Bitcoin and honestly actually surpass it. This is something that we should be talking about and keeping attention on. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive right in and look at this a little bit further. So first off, looking at crypto bubbles, what we can see is overall pretty mixed day in the market. Nothing too crazy going on here. We've got a lot of ups and a lot of downs. Pretty mixed overall. We can see Solana down 0.84%. Nothing really crazy at all. Otherwise, Bitcoin's only up about 0.5%. And some of these smaller things that there's really not a whole identified direction of the market of what we're seeing, at least right now. But what I wanted to show is over the past week, there's a couple of interesting things that have happened. First thing we can see, alts have done, I would say, generally better over the past week, but again, still relatively mixed. Now, if we look at a month, there's something right here that's very interesting to see. We can see over the past month, Bitcoin's up about 14%, and Solana's up about just shy of 13%. And so essentially very much moving with each other hand in hand, which is really nice, because if we look up here, ETH's up 2.5%, Caspa's down 30%, Sui's up 16, which is good. Aptos is 24, but these are still very these are a tiny fraction of even what Solana is. Same thing with Caspa and some of these. Otherwise, the big gainers that we're seeing are all basically mostly memes other than that. And so, the fact that Solana and Bitcoin, have done so well, I think Bitcoin, this is kind of expected, just because if we look at the altcoin season, we are in Bitcoin season still. Everybody's watching Bitcoin. We know that essentially, at least if the past is to be used as a guide, we know that Bitcoin kind of needs to top out and find its highs before we start seeing some of the liquidity flooding into some of the more smaller and riskier assets. Usually it's Bitcoin, then it trickles down to Ethereum, then it trickles down to Solana and Chainlink and Polygon and all these others, and then it trickles down to things below that, and then the peak of the market, max blow off top. That's what we saw in 2021, where it's Ponzi coins are coming out and Doge made its big run and a lot of that type of stuff. And so the fact that we're so close to Bitcoin season and we've seen Solana do so well overall is really impressive. And if we look even back since March, obviously we saw the big run up, and Bitcoin has been very consistently in a downward channel, right? And I wouldn't necessarily say that Solana has been, right? We see a higher high here. Granted, it was just a wick, but we do see a higher high so far. We've seen it recover very well. It hasn't almost touched previous all-time highs, or I guess local highs, like Bitcoin has, but we can see kind of between the 185 range and the 130 range, it's ranged very, very consistently, and it hasn't really been kind of sitting in that downward channel like Bitcoin had been. And so even for most of this past 6 or 7 months or so, it's looked kind of to be a more stable bet than even Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was kind of consistently moving down and Solana was kind of staying pretty stable. And so this is something that is pretty impressive overall, I would say. Even right now we can see we're close to making new all-time highs, and we're still lower than we were at a lower price up here. And so we are seeing kind of this bullish divergence happening. I do think we're going to see a continued move up. It would not surprise me at all if we kind of break the 200 range. I think after that, if we zoom kind of really far out and we're looking back into previous cycles, we know that the previous all-time highs are sitting around this $260 range. And so I would imagine kind of, once we break over this 200 range, we probably see something around 220-ish. And then we see something up here maybe 240, maybe 243-ish. And then we're right back aiming at all-time highs. And so I think this is something that we probably are looking at. And honestly, usually this is after, typically, we see something like this happen after Bitcoin's already made its highs. But just given how Solana has been performing, it's almost kind of been performing in line with Bitcoin. We could potentially be seeing, Solana heading for new all-time highs before the end of the year, which I think would be really, really bullish. I think there's a very realistic, and I think there's a larger sense of belief that Solana could be kind of actually the ETH killer, at this point in time, which is always, good to see, particularly if you're a Solana fan. We do want to see some of the like tech start to come in and help address some of these kind of continuous issues, particularly the ones we had last cycle with Ethereum when we're paying, $150 to go buy a token or something. Like, that's just ridiculous. And it's not something that like realistically could continue probably past one cycle, and based on everything that we're seeing now, I don't think it will. And so anyway, like as you can see, Solana, doing pretty well, ranging decently. We're seeing a ton of bullish momentum in the charts. If you are interested in kind of trading on a lot of this volatility and news and a lot of this stuff that's happening, feel free to use our link in the description below. It's to MARGEX. There's no KYC, there's no VPN needed, so you don't have to be giving out your personal information. You can just sign up and go ahead and start trading. You can also do up to 100x leverage on like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then Solana I think is more like 50x leverage, and also they have an up to $10,000 deposit bonus if that's something you're interested in. Like I said, if you are, go ahead, use our link in the description below and get started trading, and let me know how you do. So anyway, moving on, one thing I wanted to look at kind of before we wrap this up is kind of how the Solana network has been holding up. And what we can see here is, success rate has been kind of hovering right around the like 90, like just slightly above 90%, which is really good. And then we can see that transactions per second have had a slow trend to the upside, but we're seeing, kind of a steady hold above 3,000 transactions per second. We can see in the last 24 hours, 3,100 transactions per second is about what we're seeing. 2,300 validators, again, a pretty nice like number of validators within the network, which is good. Looking at the Solana network fees, we've really started to see them move up over the past couple months. We're really starting to see fees kind of do relatively well, which for like the long-term health and like stability of the Solana ecosystem, I actually think this is really good. What we've seen so far on Solana is fees really, even though they've like, as a percentage of like total fees, it really seemed to like have gone up massively. We haven't really seen like the fees on Solana are still very reasonable, right? Like, I don't know that I've paid like over a penny for a fee in probably a little while. So like fees are still very reasonable. I think a lot of this is just due more to the like increased volume on the network rather than the increased price to conduct any sort of like transaction on the network. So that's good to see. What we can see is number of blocks created is going down. And so what's interesting to me is block time's going up, blocks are going down, but transactions per second is going up. So I wonder if there's something on the technical side of Solana where we're seeing maybe they're able to kind of pack more transactions into the same block, and essentially, that's increasing like the average transactions per block, which of course would make the transactions go up, but the blocks go down. So that's kind of interesting to see. The other thing we can see is active wallets. Over the past several months, we've really seen the activity on the Solana network really do quite well. I mean, this is obviously a really wonderful trend to be looking at, particularly since it's over the past 3 months. If we look all time, I mean, we can see that we've really seen quite the explosion of activity, even just over, because this is back in May, there was 900,000, and now we're seeing 7 million. I mean, that's ridiculous growth. And I think that's part of the reason that we've seen Solana do so well and hold so well over the past several months. I mean, over the past several months, I don't think it's any surprise, or like this is not a controversial thing to say, that like the crypto market's been pretty boring. Not a whole lot's been happening. If we look at alts, they've all almost certainly bled to Bitcoin. If we were to look at Solana versus Bitcoin, it's probably bled a little bit, particularly since Bitcoin's kind of started to see that move up. It possibly has bled out a little bit, but if you look at how it's held compared to basically anything else in the market, there's really no comparison, I would say. I guess any major coin, maybe I should caveat, because I'm sure there's some micro cap somewhere that's maybe done better, but any like major coin within the market, there's really no comparison for Solana in terms of how it's held up against Bitcoin. And so I think a lot of this is, we can see it in the stats, right? I mean, the user base is exploding, almost 10x in 5 months, 6 months. We can see transactions per second doing well, continuing to go up. Network fees continuing to go up. Number of blocks created going down, which I think is probably pretty good. The success rate going up. Like, there's a lot of this stuff that's just all happening within the Solana system, and none of them are really bad, right? And so I think since we've been able to hold so well despite all of this bullish information, all of this bullish stuff happening, potentially when things start to get a little crazy, I think we could see Solana just do some absolutely insane numbers, and particularly maybe even some stuff on the Solana ecosystem, because a lot of what happened in the last bull run is things on Ethereum went crazy after Ethereum went crazy, right? And so if we see something similar this bull run with Solana, where Solana 3, 4, 5, 6x's, and then we see everybody on Solana taking all of their Solana gains and going and buying, you know, the newest and most fun meme coin or whatever, like it's a very realistic possibility that we could see that happen. So anyway, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give us a like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Also, drop a comment if you want me to see anything, or have you have any questions, comments, whatever. I do try and read and respond to all of them. So if you want me to see anything like that, that's probably the best way to do it. Otherwise, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.